Hello everybody, I am Tom and you are watching YouTube News. On November 12th, YouTube CEO Susan Wojcicki wrote an op-ed in the Financial Times. I won't read the entire op-ed, just select parts that are useful. If you want to read the whole thing, I've got the YouTube Creator blog where it's got a mirror of the article, and you can find that in the description. But the article is concerning Article 13, which is a proposed European Union article, which in essence has the goal of tightening copyright law in the EU. We'll go into the actual proposal later in the video. But firstly, let's look at Wojcicki's article. She starts out by highlighting EU creators and by noting how much money the company has made for said creators. You got 800 million euro, which is not insignificant. It's a lot of money made by content creators for YouTube. And she also talks about how much money YouTube has made the global music industry at 1.5 billion euro, which is insane. And I have no doubt she's focusing on the industry because the problem she foresees with the legislation will likely come predominantly from the music industry. However, she states, this creator economy is under threat from a section of the EU's efforts to revise its copyright directive, known as Article 13, which holds internet companies directly responsible for any copyright infringement in the content shared on their platform. She goes on to say that although the stated goals of the article are supported by YouTube, and by extension presumably Google, the actuality is it will affect many creators' livelihoods, and the practicality of monitoring the 400 hours of content that are uploaded to YouTube every minute is simply unfeasible. Also, there is the fact that the copyright holders are often in disagreement on who owns which part of the content or which rights are owned by who, so the content is impossible for YouTube to determine if it's not entirely possible whether the content creators actually agree on who owns the rights between publishers, creator, etc. She uses the example of Despacito, which is meme-tastically hilarious, and it shows that she probably knows a big chunk of her audience when she's writing this op-ed. And she writes, although YouTube has agreements with multiple entities to license and pay for the video, some of the rights holders remain unknown. That uncertainty means that we may have to block videos like this to avoid liability under Article 13. Multiply that risk by the scale of YouTube, where more than 400 hours of video are uploaded every minute, and the potential liabilities could be so large that no company could take on such a financial risk. She then goes on to describe how YouTube has already taken action in combating copyright infringement, pointing to the Content ID system, which has, quote, to date, we have used this system to pay rights holders more than 2.5 billion euro for third-party use of their content. We believe Content ID provides the best solution for managing rights on a global scale. She then expands on the consequences other than financial that could be forced into implementation, such as cutting off EU residents from viewing videos, implying, at least to me, that they're going to both block content in the EU for viewers as well as blocking the upload of EU creators. And she concludes with, quote, we welcome the chance to work with policymakers in the industry to develop a solution within Article 13 that protects rights holders while also allowing the creative economy to thrive. This could include more comprehensive licensing agreements, collaboration with rights holders to identify who owns what, and smart rights management technology similar to Content ID. Platforms that follow these rules and make a good effort to help rights holders identify their content shouldn't be held directly liable for every single piece of content that a user uploads. We ask policymakers to find a solution that protects rights holders and creators alike, and listen to the growing number of EU voices, including some member countries, who agree there's a better way forward. Now, if we're going to discuss this accurately, we have to also see whether what Wojcicki is implying is indeed a likely outcome of the article, so let's go ahead and do that. First, let's look at the FAQ put out by the European Commission, which is the legislative proposal institution of the European Union. Again, there's a link in the description for the FAQ. But essentially, these are the people who wrote and are pushing forward the actual Article 13. Now, questions 2, 3, and 4 of the FAQ are of most note regarding Wojcicki's op-ed, so as not to misconstrue any of the Commission's answers, I'll read them just verbatim. Question 2. How would the new rules tackle the value gap between creators and online platforms? The Commission wants to reinforce the mission of right holders to negotiate and be remunerated for the online use of their content. The main objective of Article 13 of the proposed rules is to allow content creators and other rights holders to negotiate with online services and content distributors how their work is used and shared online. This will give creators, authors, and rights holders the possibility to better control the use of their work and to be fairly remunerated. This obligation would only concern user-uploaded content platforms that have become major sources of access to copyright-protected content, which they financially profit from, in the form of advertisements, often without the consent of rights holders. In practice, big online platforms which store and provide access to large amounts of user-uploaded content, i.e. platforms that are widely used to upload videos, photos, music and text, will be asked to put in place, in collaboration with rights holders, adequate and proportionate technical measures. These measures will allow them to implement agreements reached on the use of copyright-protected content, or to prevent the dissemination of infringing content if the rights holders prefer so. Contractual partners of creators will have to share their creators' information on the exploitation of their works and performances. This also includes a mechanism under which creators can request and obtain a fair share when the remuneration originally agreed becomes disproportionately low compared to the revenue generated by the use of their works. If agreements are concluded with rights holders, the measures would help them to get an appropriate remuneration for the use of their work. If no such agreements exist, rights holders would need to provide the service with metadata of their content, e.g. fingerprints, to prevent the upload of specific unauthorized content. If no such metadata is provided to the platforms, they can allow the content to be freely uploaded by the user. Question 3. Will the uploading filters block the way we enjoy internet? Enjoy internet? God damn it, you're like a government body. Just proofread your shit, please. Will the uploading filters block the way we enjoy the internet? We aim to reinforce the position of rights holders to negotiate and be remunerated for the online use of their content by online platforms. Our proposal is not targeting users and their capacity to upload content. It addresses platforms with large amount of user-uploaded content which have become major sources of access to copyright-protected content. We need to ensure that those who create and invest in content have a say in whether and how their content is made available by the platforms, and enjoy a fair share of the financial reward drawn by their content. The Commission proposal requires platforms which store and provide access to large amounts of copyright-protected content uploaded by their users to put in place effective and proportionate measures. This, in collaboration with the rights holders, to allow the functioning of agreements reached on the use of copyright-protected content, or to prevent the availability of unauthorized content if the rights holders prefer not to have their content available on such platforms. Question 4. Are the new rules targeting users and their freedom online? Our proposal is not targeting users and their possibility to upload content. The platform will not have to actively monitor all content uploads by users. The proposal addresses a specific problem: the limited control of rights holders over the use of their content and the remuneration by services storing and giving access to large amount of copyright-protected content that is uploaded by platform users. Our proposal does not in any way limit the use of content under copyright exemptions, example education, research, or free speech, example parody and memes, on user-generated content platforms. The aim of the proposal is to support an effective and balanced marketplace where platforms and rights holders can negotiate and agree on the use of copyright-protected content. And also question 5 is just hilarious, so I'll include it as well. Question 5, is the Commission banning memes? The Commission is not banning memes, caricatures, or any reuse of content allowed under exemptions or limitations of copyright. Caricatures, parody, or pastiche are protected by an optional exemption under Article 5, Section 3, Part K of the 2001 InfoSoc Directive, allowing reproductions and communications of such content to the public and guaranteeing the author's freedom of expression. Article 13 of the proposed copyright directive will not affect the application of this exemption. The parody exception is here to stay. The Commission's proposal only added the possibility of authors of memes or parodic content to tackle over-removal by online platforms through the mandatory redress mechanism included in the proposal. This means that in case parodic content is removed, the creator of his content will be able to contest the removal and ask the content to be published based on a parody exemption in place. Such complaint processes are already today widely used by all major online platforms. Which does raise the question, if they're used by all major online platforms, why is there a need for the proposal in the first place? But I digress. Let's look at question 2. The answer to this question would seem to support Wojcicki's claim, particularly Article 13 will, blah blah blah, allow content creators and other rights holders to negotiate with online services and content distributors. The content distributors in this case would be YouTube. As described lower in the answer, it will affect major sources of access to copyright-protected material, and, in practice, big online platforms which store and provide access to large amount of user-uploaded content. YouTube definitely fits that bill. This seems to me at least to indicate that YouTube would be held responsible if copyright content was found on their platform, at least in or from the EU. So the basis of Wojcicki's claim seems perfectly valid. Now, if we move on to question 3, there's a problem I have with this answer, and as I see it, it seems to state that we are not targeting users and their capacity to upload content. It addresses platforms with large amounts of users uploading content which have become major sources of access to copyright-protected content. Firstly, once again straight up states that the legislation is targeting the distributor. But secondly, and somewhat more importantly, they seem to be defining user as copyright holder. It seems to be saying that YouTube has copyrighted content on its platform just magically, or somehow that YouTube puts it there itself. And the people that are putting there in the first place aren't actually users of YouTube. The point being that they are targeting users, just those they see as copyright infringers, and they're going after them by imposing restrictions on the platform, rather than going after the perpetrators themselves. This also bleeds somewhat into question 4, where they state that the proposal does not limit copyright exemptions, and that the platform would not have to actively monitor all the content uploaded by users. This, on the face of it, sounds like it contradicts Wojcicki, but at the same time, further down in the answer, they go on to say, the aim of the proposal is to support an effective and balanced marketplace where platforms and rights holders can negotiate and agree on the use of copyright-protected content. What exactly are the rights holders negotiating with the platform? If the platform doesn't have to do anything about the copyrighted content except what they're already doing, what is the point of this motion? In any case, move on to question 5. It's just hilarious, because they felt like they needed to put this in the FAQ separately from their point about fair use content. I guess they were just scared of like the autistic screeching coming from memers. In any case, my final thoughts on this is, firstly, I think Wojcicki's correct in asserting that the proposal could have major problems for large tech companies when they're operating in the EU. I've not actually read the proposal itself, as I can't find it anywhere. If someone does have access to it, I'd love to see it, so either email it or just link it in the comments or something, I'm sure I'll see it. But based on the answers given in their own FAQ, it would seem to me that they're indeed targeting hosting sites and trying to define them as publishing sites. It's notable that in the US, where all these companies are actually based, there is a legal protection for a hosting platform such as YouTube, which differentiates it from a publisher, which protects them from claims of defamation and copyright. I do have some problems with YouTube on this as well, however. For instance, the copyright claiming system on YouTube is broken at this point. It works as implemented for sure, but is way too easy to abuse, as countless examples have shown. There's a simple fix for this as well. All you need to do is, for a failed Content ID claim, i.e. one where there was a successful counterclaim, you need to have some sort of detriment or punishment to the initial filer of the claim. YouTube has thus far failed to do anything, and thereby failed to protect their falsely claimed users, and hence there's a fair amount of spite and animosity coming towards YouTube when they're the ones under the financial firing line. Which, I mean, it's a shame, because this is a problem for YouTube, and thereby also a problem for all of their users, but I understand it from someone who's been Content ID'd for something that wasn't valid, and then they had to wait 3 months for the video to go up, and they've essentially made no money on it, and it's just a shit system, and I can understand why they're pissed about it when YouTube now comes up and saying, but we may lose money. They're like, well, yeah, you fucked us over, so... In any case. This Article 13, based on what I know now, granted, I haven't read the full article, it seems to be at best unnecessary, and at worst, potentially very bad for content creators and content consumers in the EU. I mean, copyright law is currently overpowered in favour of the copyright holder, as far as I'm concerned, and extending that seems to be the wrong move. But if I get a chance to read the entire proposal, I may change my mind, but it's interesting. Because, as I see it now, what they're essentially proposing is something akin to what YouTube already has with its copyright ID claim, and what all of these platforms have in a very similar claiming system. If something is copyrighted, you can put a claim in, they will then freeze all the assets being made by that content, and if you win the copyright claim, you get all the assets of that content. Or it gets taken down, your choice, either way. Which seems to be what they're proposing, so at best it seems completely unnecessary, and at worst it seems like it could put some heavy restrictions on YouTube, which is bad for everyone in the EU, essentially. And anyone who watches content from the EU as well, presumably. In any case, thanks for watching. I shall see you next time.